The late 2nd century CE saw the vast Han Empire of China plunge into unprecedented chaos. The millennial dynasty was collapsing, undermined by court corruption, the rise of influential eunuchs and peasant rebellions, like that of the Yellow Turbans. In this setting of generalized disorder and civil wars, ambitious warlords emerged, each seeking to forge their own dominion over the empire's fragments. It was in this environment of conflict and ambition that a figure emerged who would become legendary for his military prowess and his notorious lack of loyalty. Libu Fengxin. The exact date of his birth is uncertain, but Libu lived through the most turbulent years of the Three Kingdoms era, a period that extended approximately between 184 and 280 CE. His humble origins, from a region corresponding to northern Inner Mongolia today, contrasted with his physical strength and innate talent for warfare. From an early age, he stood out as an incomparable warrior, a master of horsemanship and archery, capable of feats that defied the understanding of his contemporaries. His figure was imposing, his presence on the battlefield was pure terror, and his name was whispered with admiration and fear. Libu's signature weapon was the Fangshan Huaji halberd, a hybrid weapon with side blades and a sharp point, which required immense strength and skill to wield masterfully. Mounted on his legendary steed, Red Hare, a horse said to be able to travel 1,000 Chinese miles in a single day, Libu was a force of nature. His reputation grew with every battle, being called the Flying Tiger or the most powerful under heaven, an epithet that would become synonymous with his invincibility in single combat. Despite his military prowess, Libu's character was marked by a weakness that would come to define his career: inconstancy and lack of loyalty. His first notorious betrayal occurred when he served Ding Yuan, a provincial inspector, and his adopted father. Seduced by promises of wealth, power, and, more specifically, by the legendary horse Red Hare, offered by the tyrant Dongzhuo, Libu assassinated Ding Yuan with his adopted father's head in hand. He deserted to Dongzhuo's side, a warlord who had seized control of the imperial court and ruled with brutality. This initial betrayal, while it gained him the horse Red Hare and a privileged position under the most powerful man in China at the time, stained his reputation indelibly. By the values of the era, the betrayal of a father, even an adopted one, was a heinous crime. Libu, the unparalleled warrior, now carried the stigma of a traitor, a man whose loyalty could be bought or easily shifted. This duality, between unmatched martial skill and questionable morality, would be a recurring theme in his life and in the legend he would leave for posterity. Libu's ascent was only just beginning, but the seed of his downfall had already been planted in his own character. With the betrayal of Ding Yuan and the acquisition of the legendary horse Red Hare, Libu had cemented his position alongside Dongzhuo, the tyrant who controlled the puppet emperor and wielded brutal power over the imperial capital Luoyang. The relationship between the powerful warlord and the unparalleled warrior was one of mutual convenience. Dongzhuo saw in Libu the unmatched military might to consolidate his dominion, while Libu found in a tyrant a source of wealth, influence, and the opportunity to display his combat prowess. Dongzhuo was a man of boundless cruelty and ambition. He plundered cities, terrorized the populace, and openly disrespected the imperial court and the Han family. His tyranny led to the formation of a coalition of eastern warlords, led by figures like Yuan Shao and Cao Cao, who swore to overthrow him. Libu, with his Fangshan Huaji halberd and mounted on Red Hare, was Dongzhuo's main weapon, his invincible champion in any direct confrontation. In battles against the coalition armies, Libu faced multiple enemy generals, demonstrating a martial superiority that intimidated even the bravest. However, the relationship between Libu and Dongzhuo was unstable, undermined by paranoia and the volatile nature of both. Dongzhuo was temperamental and suspicious, with fits of rage that led him to throw his halberd at Libu, even if the adopted son managed to dodge it. This tension was aggravated by a crucial figure in history, Tao Chan. Tao Chan is one of the four beauties of ancient China and plays a central role in the novel called Romance of the Three Kingdoms, though her historical existence is debated. In the narrative, she was a beautiful maidservant of Wang Yun, a cunning Han court official who saw Libu as the key to overthrowing Dongzhuo. Wang Yun devised an ingenious plan. He first promised Tao Chan in marriage to Libu, knowing the warrior's fascination with her. Then, he offered her as a concubine to Dongzhuo. Tao Chan's beauty and her ability to manipulate both men led to growing discord between adopted father and son. Tao Chan, acting under Wang Yun's instructions, fueled Libu's jealousy and Dongzhuo's distrust, playing one against the other. The rivalry, combined with Dongzhuo's tyrannical nature and Libu's desire for greater power and control, culminated in Libu's second major betrayal. Encouraged by Wang Yun and the promise of Tao Chan, Libu assassinated Dongzhuo in 192 CE. The act shocked China. The tyrant who terrorized the empire was killed by his own champion, briefly freeing the imperial court from his dominion. Libu, acclaimed by Wang Yun, hoped to be recognized as a hero. However, Dongzhuo's death did not bring the expected order. On the contrary, it plunged China into even greater chaos. Dongzhuo's former followers, led by generals like Li Ju and Guo Si, reacted with fury and attacked the capital. Liu Yang despite his strength, was forced to flee, losing his power base and the support of the Han court. He was once again a man without a master, wandering through China, but now with a reputation as a betrayer of 2 adopted fathers, an almost unbearable stigma by the values of the time. His military prowess was unquestionable, but his loyalty was non-existent, making him a dangerous ally and a volatile enemy. The search for a place for himself in a shattered China was only just beginning. With Dong Zhuo's death, Liu hoped to consolidate his own power and perhaps even rise as a dominant figure in a fragmented China. However, his reputation as a betrayer of 2 adopted fathers haunted him, making it difficult for him to find reliable allies and hold on to the lands he conquered. Liu was a brilliant general in single combat, but he lacked the political cunning and strategic patience needed to found an empire. His ambition, devoid of consistent loyalty, would lead him into a series of bloody conflicts and a relentless quest for a kingdom of his own. Liu engaged in a complex dance of alliances and betrayals with the era's greatest warlords. His main and most persistent enemy was Cao Cao, a brilliant strategist and one of the future founders of the Kingdom of Wei. Between 194 and 195 CE, Liu and Cao Cao fought a series of ruthless battles in Yan province. Liu managed, for a brief period, to seize control of a large part of Cao Cao's territory, taking advantage of a campaign by the latter against another warlord. Liu's combat tactics were legendary. He heavily relied on his own strength and that of his horse Red Hare to lead devastating charges, penetrating enemy lines and breaking their morale. His appearance on the battlefield was enough to instill terror. However, Cao Cao was a master of strategy and tactics, capable of using more complex maneuvers, ambushes and numerical superiority to wear down Liu. The battles against Cao Cao were spectacles of bravery and cunning. In a famous incident, during one of the campaigns against Cao Cao, Liu, in a great display of strength and skill, fired an arrow that struck the pin of a halberd he had placed as a target between the armies, resolving a dispute without bloodshed and avoiding a larger confrontation for a time. Despite his tactical victories and invincibility in duels, Liu frequently failed to maintain his conquests. His erratic nature and his inability to keep the support of his subordinates, or to forge lasting alliances, always led him to lose what he gained. He would betray allies at crucial moments or make ill-considered decisions that would leave him vulnerable. One of his most important allies, and also a victim of his inconstancy, was Liu Bei, the future founder of the Kingdom of Shuhan and a figure revered for his virtue. Liu, after losing his lands to Cao Cao, sought refuge with Liu Bei, who welcomed him in Su. However, Liu's ambition was strong. He betrayed Liu Bei, taking control of his base in Su multiple times, and constantly threatened his ally, demonstrating his treacherous nature. Liu's life during this period was one of an eternal fugitive and temporary conqueror. He moved from one warlord to another, never truly settling. He went to Yuan Shu, another warlord, but mutual arrogance between them prevented a productive alliance. His luck was always changing, a reflection of his volatile personality. He relied on his ability to fight and his reputation, but he failed to build the foundations of lasting political power. Liu's instability and his continuous threat to Cao Cao and Liu Bei led these 2 giants to form an alliance against him. They knew that, although Liu was a formidable warrior, his lack of principles made him an unpredictable danger to anyone who crossed his path. The decision to eliminate him once and for all was made. Everything was leading to the final confrontation that would seal the fate of the god of war. Liu's inconstancy, his boundless ambition, and his inability to retain allies for long ultimately shaped his fate. He had betrayed Ding Yuan and Dong Zhuo, and his volatile relationship with Liu Bei made him an unpredictable enemy for all the great warlords of China. The situation became untenable. Cao Cao and Liu Bei, the 2 most prominent strategists of the era, who would later found their own kingdoms, joined forces to definitively eliminate the threat of Liu. The final confrontation occurred in 198 CE at the Battle of Xiapi, a city in Su province, where Liu had established himself. The allied forces of Cao Cao and Liu Bei, numerically superior and tactically astute, besieged the city. The siege was prolonged and exhausting. Liu, despite his genius in combat, was at a disadvantage. His own character flaws began to manifest within his ranks. His subordinates, tired of his erratic leadership, his distrust, and his outbursts of rage, began to conspire against him. The morale of Liu's troops collapsed. Reports indicate that his own generals, Song Xian and Wei Su, mutinied and tied Liu up while he slept, delivering him to Cao Cao. Other versions say he tried to resist until the end, but was overcome by his own men. Regardless of the details, the betrayal he had inflicted on others finally turned against him. Captured, Liu was brought before Cao Cao and Liu Bei in a last act of desperation and arrogance. Liu tried to argue for his life. He offered his services to Cao Cao, promising his incomparable military prowess to help unify China. "I can command your cavalry and conquer the world for you," he supposedly said. Cao Cao, who recognized Liu's military strength, considered the proposal for a moment. However, Liu Bei, with his wisdom, intervened, reminding Cao Cao of Lu Bu's past betrayals of Ding Yuan and Dong Zhuo. "Don't you remember how Ding Yuan and Dong Zhuo died?" Liu Bei asked. Liu Bei's warning weighed heavily. Cao Cao, who would never fully trust a man who had betrayed two adopted fathers, made his decision. He ordered Lu Bu's execution. Lu Bu was hanged and subsequently beheaded in Xiapi. His death marked the end of one of the most powerful warriors in Chinese history, but also the end of an era of anarchy for him. Despite his fall, Lu Bu's legacy endured and transformed into legend. He became the archetype of the god of war. In Chinese culture, his figure is immortalized in the historical novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, where his military exploits are elevated to an epic level, making him an unforgettable, feared, and admired character. In this novel, he is the supreme warrior, capable of facing three of the greatest heroes of the era simultaneously. This dramatic image solidified his reputation for future generations. His influence extends far beyond classical literature. Lu Bu is a constant presence in modern popular culture, appearing in countless video games, films, television series, and manga. He is portrayed as the strongest and most challenging character, an almost unbeatable final boss in games like Dynasty Warriors, even if his story is tinged with betrayal. His unparalleled combat skill ensures his place in the pantheon of history's greatest legendary warriors. The legend of Lu Bu is a vivid reminder that brute force, however impressive, is often not enough for lasting glory, and that character can be a man's greatest weapon or his greatest weakness. The saga of Lu Bu, the god of war, is a fascinating blend of martial prowess and character flaws. Which aspect of Lu Bu's life intrigues you most? His invincible combat skill, or his notorious lack of loyalty? If you lived in the Three Kingdoms era, would you try to recruit Lu Bu for your army, even knowing his reputation as a betrayer, or would you consider him too great a threat? Share your opinion in the comments. And if there's another legendary warrior, or a period of chaos and the rise of heroes, that you'd love us to explore in our next video, leave your suggestion below. Your curiosity is our guide to unraveling the great stories of the world, and the next adventure begins with you.